Hi everybody, welcome to my channel for new battle report. This time another practice game for ETC. After the lists were published, I figured out I wanted to try out to play against some of the more beefiest beaster lists, so to say. So the one with more bodies, with more combat power, just to see how I can fight against that. And I decided to play a practice game against Crusader list from Poland. Played by my cousin LICHEMEISTER. We play usually together, and he has a nice beaster army, so it was the occasion to do this training. So this is the list. Very solid magical setup. This was also the occasion for me to analyze it more in detail. So he has a Master Druidism with the Dark Forest and the occasion to cast an extra dice when he really wants to force a spell through. Then he has an Adept Shamanism with a Binding Scroll. The General is basically res 6 for regen, great weapon, blessed inscription, and extra range for his leadership. Then he has a BSB with the totem beer, I guess, yes, with a ban of discipline, 4+4+ and a great weapon. So very huge magical setup where he can buff easily combat with all the totems, Master Druidism plus an Adept Shamanism. He has really a lot of spell at his disposal, even when he's facing Binding Scrolls. Then he has 3 units of ambushers in core, 14 Mongrel Rider as a bunker for mages, 2 piece of chaff, 2 units of Longboard Herd with great weapon, 1 bigger, 1 smaller. The one bigger has a ban of speed, and then he has 2 Gortax. So straightforward list. And I was really eager to see how I can play against this list. So we played, I proposed him to play the configuration which might be the hardest or the most engaging, fighty, so to say. We decided to go for diagonal and all the ground, which ensure that both our army are going to clash quite early in the game, where I cannot play too much the standoff game. I think that was going to be the most interesting to learn something about the matchup. Spell selection, I was, according to these parameters, I decided to trade my usual pick, which is an additional blast, and pick instead the breast weapon. And on the right you see all the spell that he has at his disposal to buff combats. Matchup analysis, so there's a lot of combat buff, like I said, which can be tricky to engage. Hard to find the right time, and then if you engage against the Longhorn, you need to be sure that you can kill them quite quickly, because if you stay too long, then basically with summer growth, regen, and then toughness buff, you can easily change the settings of the combat. Range damage is to my advantage, meaning you will need to engage as soon as possible. But also because of the secondary objective, I can't take too long to engage as well, because I would be too far away from the center, and then I could lose a couple of precious points towards the end. In the early stages, which matter a lot towards the end when you add up all the points for secondary objective, and don't want to lose it. Game plan would be for me to get rid of the Gortax in the first steps, because then I could establish some dominance with basically try to set up position where I could have combo charges, which could be too much to handle for him. So that would be my first priority, and then try to threaten with combo charges. I know exactly how I would rate the matchup. I think I would probably put it at 10 unstable. It's kind of hard to rate it. I think it depends a bit of who is starting, first of all, and then if he can start, it could be really explosive, I guess. Deployment, and that's what happened, was quite interesting. I won the roll for side, so I cut in a way that I gave him an impassable in his big corner, strong corner, so to say. And he decided to drop for first turn, which makes the battle very interesting, because he will be able to push me and I will need to react. So he has 2 units of chaff towards the middle, his big longhorn brick in the middle, the seed of Dark Forest is here. Then he has his Mongrel on the table and 2 units of Wildhorn ambushing, smaller unit of Longherd here with 2 characters. So here he has the BSB, and here he has the Adept Shamanism plus the General, Gortax on the sides, and on the back you have the Mage Bunker with the Druidist Mage. And how I counter deployed, so I looked at the table and saw that from the middle towards the top would be a hard place to go for the Tuskers, because of all the train would mean too many DTs and kind of hard for them to express themselves. So I decided to put them bottom facing a Gortak, and the smaller unit of Longhorn, I think they could fancy their chances here to be able to go forward and threaten him at some point. Then I put Tribesmen towards the middle on the hill to have reroll to hit and be a big threat toward the middle, and then my Merc-Vets facing his main unit with the potential support of my monster from the left. You have here the Giant and the Frosty, and then I carefully placed my darts to cover all the angle from his chaff. Basically, I check the potential position of his dogs moving forward to make sure I can kill the chaff with my darts. So this one was covering here, this one covering right and left, and this one covering the right. Basically making sure that if he pushes hard, I can still back up with the main units and then get rid of the chaff with some less important units. So that was the idea. He's turn 1, and yeah, as expected, he pushed. So he chaffed both the Tuskers and the Tribesmen, so them to the back and them to the front, which make sense. Other than that, he just pushes forward, and this was quite interesting because at first he decided to push them 3 inches more forward, which would have been a charge on a 5 for the Merc-Vets instead of an 8, and then the Great Khan could also go out, which was, or I think maybe instead of a 9 even. But basically I had the opportunity to send the Great Khan, send the Merc-Vets, and maybe like a Tribesman dart. And I told him after I did that, I told him I think it would be a huge mistake. I think I could get rid of most of the units, then position the Great Khan in contact with the BSB, assassinate the BSB. He's no longer steadfast bodyguard, and I think that would be the game. And afterward, I checked the mass just to have an idea of how it would look like, to see if my assumption was right or not. So this is the damage that I would do with impact hit. Just counted, that's just the output for the Merc-Vets. So I'm not taking into account any charge from the Great Khan and also the additional attack from the Tribesmen going before the Longhorns, which would add even more result. And as you can see, it's quite likely that I would do around, and that's without the stomps. So with stomp included, I could easily do something like 20-ish wounds, which meant that he would have like 10 guys left, but certainly no two ranks, meaning it wouldn't be steadfast. Most likely, my Great Khan against his BSB is 3 up, 2 up, and then he has a 4 up rod save, depending then on magic, but I mean, there is a high chance that would be the end of the game. And after that, we discussed a bit, because the idea was also for me to get a good test and to see how it would be played, because if he takes too much risk, I get rid of this unit, and then we end more or less the game after turn 1. We didn't learn much, so I advise him to move slightly backwards. We'll see how that goes. Magic phase, he got the throne off, but nothing else. I dispel Stone Skin, so he would have no buffs at all, meaning I would have the charge on the 5, this one maybe on the 6 or 7, and this one automatic from the Great Khan against them plus magic phase. I think that would have been too much, so yeah, I think that was the right choice to put them back a bit more safe. So my turn, I couldn't take the charge on them because I was too far, or it was just too risky, because if I fail with the Merc-Vets, then basically my Great Khan going alone or with Tribesmen is just too risky for me. So I chaffed them in the middle, using them as well to frenzy bait the Gortak. So the Gortak was looking at the middle and I was within the range to frenzy bait him. So I thought that was going to be quite interesting, because it would still allow to remain close and not be afraid of a charge, because I'm chaffing him in the flank. But at the same time I would be frenzy baiting Gortak to put him completely out of position in case he fails it. Then I charged chaff with the Bruiser as expected. I was able to reform them, move them back, and move in between with my chaff piece to chaff his Gortak. I needed to position my Great Khan that way to, so I broke the inch when doing the charge to then make sure I could move slightly to the right, give 9 rollable to the cat to really take no risk when the Gortak charges my chaff. Then what else? I had another plan, which was to move back the Bruisers to look at my backfield, and then I wanted to turn around the second unit to look at my backfield, basically making it possible for him to ambush over here, or he would be risking a charge from my Bruisers. And I think I should do fine with a combat buff, and he would be really far away from his buffs. So I felt quite okay with the situation. I would get rid of a first chaff, chaff his go attack and control what happens here in the bottom. So I felt quite okay. And I positioned myself to do maximum range damage at his go attack. I think he made a slight mistake. Should have moved a bit more to the back and not allow me to escape line of sight with both. And even I was able to escape line of sight with the Frosty in a position where I can throw both hunting spear to his flank. Okay, it's only 5+ to hit, but then it's strength 5 and multiple wound D3. So if I get only one on, I could easily kill him with the help of the Merc Vets and the BSB, who also had a line of sight on him to kill him. So I felt quite okay here. Both monster out of line of sight on his flank. I felt here I was able to gain some advantage while slowing down the middle. In the magic phase, I got Smite the Unbeliever off on the go attack to basically wound him easier. Then he dispels my breast weapon on the giant, which was his first priority. He didn't want to get any additional damage to get rid of the go attack, but I got Wrath of God here in the middle of his line in exchange for that. Close shooting, I did like 2 wounds, but not much. Didn't hit with those guys. Didn't do much with the Merc Vet. I think 1 or 2 wounds, but not much against the go attack. Close combat, what happens? I kill all but 2. And I fail my restrain on a 9 rollable, which is a bit unfortunate and forces me to run him down and stop 1 inch away from them, which is not the worst case scenario, but I really wanted them to turn around to be able to get rid of, to zone his chaff, and now it's not his ambushing unit, and I'm not able to do it anymore. His turn, so a couple of things to say. First of all, he failed the frenzy here. Decided not to charge them in the middle to not cause a traffic jam, but chooses instead to charge here my back to try to overrun in the flank of my Merc Vets. Was a long charge, like 10 or 11, but since I failed to restrain here, I didn't feel anymore that this unit wouldn't zone everything, because it's still a lot of space where it can fit and is far away from my charge range. So I felt I would just flee that charge. He decided to redirect, but to my surprise he redirected against the Merc Vets, which was as well a long charge, so I passed 9 rollable third check, but then I was able to stand and shoot, and I think there is a high chance that I would kill him in combat. But luckily for him, he failed the charge, uses the dog to chaff me. What had happened here? He charged my dog, I passed my third check, and he charged also towards the middle my chaffing tribesman. So that's how he ended up. So he failed charge, here close combat, chaffing of the Merc Vets, moving the rest slightly forward, so he puts 2 units within the 6 inch of the middle, and here you can see my Wrath of God token. He decided not to charge these guys because he would be too close for my Death Star with on the hill with reroll to reroll the charge range, which I felt that was right. And then he was able to get both ambush on and basically chaff my Tuskers to the front, which is I think a good choice. He could avoid the overrun from me and then use the second unit to threaten my back line. So good choice here. Yeah, the magic phase. So I decided most likely he would get rid of them. Then I'm in a position, I saw straight away that I could combo charge with both monsters against the chaff unit and basically get an overrun with both, most likely against the Longhorn, because if you see this position, my Frosty would go up to here, so it's very hard for him to cut that line, and basically most likely I would get both monsters to his flank or back and then them in the front. So I felt triple combo charge against the Longhorn might be my best chance in the game, so let's go for it. I use Binding Scroll on Stone Skin. I dispel, he had the big card, number 8. With one dice, I dispel Oaken Throne. He cast it again with 2 dice. I dispel +1 resilience, but then he was able to get a regen off and battle focus off. And here I think I made a dispelling mistake because I should have used, I think, all or most of my dice to dispel the regen. I think that would have been the right choice, to just get off the regen and let him have +1 resilience and some other tokens, because that's the one who mattered the most against all the impact hits that I could potentially send. But we'll see how that goes. My Wrath of God comes down, one shot my tribesmen, did 2 wounds to my bruisers, did like 8 to them, which is nice, a couple here, and only 2 or 3 to the Longhorn, so not much. He killed my dogs, no problem, and reform in a way to avoid the overrun, and I think that was it. So my turn, let's go for it. So I double charge with my monsters to his dogs, and I would get both overrunning onto the Longhorn, which is nice, and I charge in the front automatic with my tribesman to his front. So he has a regen 4-up, his bodyguard, he has only the BSB within the unit, and he has also Savage Fury off. But I also have a magic phase, so we'll see. Here I charge a chaff because I find a good solution, which is to move the Merc on the hill and have a good shooting and magic phase to do some wounds on the Gortax. And basically if I do 2 to 3 wounds, then I think Tuskers have some chance to basically hold combat or maybe even kill him. I even position the mage in case I can cast the breast weapon. I could do some wounds and maybe force panic check. I failed the rally on 8 rollable, so I continue to flee, which is a bit unfortunate. And here I use these guys to chaff him in the flank and make sure he cannot. Basically the idea that I want is to give me some... I really want to go through in... I think we will see at the end of this round whether or not I can win the game or lose the game, because it will depend a lot on this close combat. It's a huge commit, but I think that was the right timing to do it. Basically the only counter charge that he has would be the Gortak, so he could send the Gortak in, but that would be it. I really want to stop the rest to still be able to play on the steadfast in case I need to. In the magic phase, Binding Scroll Smite the Unbeliever, which makes sense. I cast then Hereditary on my tribesman, which he dispelled. I failed the breast weapon and it dispels Rod of Battle, so I get a blank magic face, nothing cast. Close combat, so these guys get rid of the chaff, overrun onto the flank, that's okay. These guys kill his unit, I let him flee, and the big combat, what happens? So I'm in this position. I did a mistake, which was to issue a challenge with the Great Khan. I really wanted to block the BSB, he gave me the champion, which makes sense. I shouldn't have issue any challenge. Let him speak, basically just say I issue no challenge, and then he has two options. Either he issue a challenge with his champion, I can take it with my own champion, which is nice, or he issue it with his BSB and I can take it with the Great Khan and kill him. So I think that would have been the best choice, because then the Great Khan can strike against the unit and do more damage than against the champion. And then what happened? So I had, as you can see, it's D3 impacted strength 5, D6 stomp, 6 attack strength 5. Here it's D3 impacted strength 6, D6 stomp strength 6, 4 attack strength 6, 6 attack strength 4. It's quite a lot from the flank. And the front, it's D3 plus 1 strength 5, D3 plus 1 strength 5, 4 strength 4, and then all ton of attacks. And with all of that combined, the total I did was 7 wounds, which is not enough, because then he was able to go back with 20 attacks more or less, 23, 24. And what he did to me back was 22 wounds. So basically I auto broke from my charge with 3 units combined against the unit of Longhorn, which surprised me a bit. But I think this is mainly due to one mistake, which was to let the regen spell go off. Without the regen buff, even with +1 resilience, distracting what you want, then all my automatic hits would have done much more. And then obviously I rolled poorly. He rolled slightly above average on his regen save, and all of that together meant that I just auto broke in 1 round, which was crazy. At least I'm not used to that when I get such a combo charge. But yeah, and that was basically the end of the game already, because after that you can see what happened. Basically auto break of all of that, then it's his turn. So with that he can eat that he can push me, charge the flank of the Mercs. It's the end of the game. It's the end of the game. So yeah, that was a short battle. What did I learn? Because I still learned quite a lot of things. First one, so it was, I think, the hardest condition I could have to face this list. All the ground, I'm not starting, it's diagonal, meaning we are close to each other, and because of all the ground, we need to fight quite early on, at the risk, if I don't do that, I would have the risk to be behind on the secondary objective and then have big pressure to climb back the mountain. Deployment, I think I should have switched between Tusker and Tribesman. First of all, Tribesman could have pushed a bit more towards that house and make just impossible for the Gortak to trap me. And then basically the Tusker are not so anymore trappable towards the middle. And second point is also the fact that Tribesmen, as we saw, don't have so much of a good matchup against his Longhorn, because I'm hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s, which is not so crazy. And I think I should have not be facing so many Longhorn with them. So I think here there is a first key mistake on the deployment stage. Yeah, I had also an alternative option to not commit so early, not commit on turn 2, which would have been charged with the giant on the chaff, and then try to overrun on the flank of the Longhorn, but just for the story, for the record, basically the giant rolled just what he needed to overrun to the flank, and I would have missed that if I charged maximizing towards the center, so I would not have been able to chaff him, meaning I would have been at risk to get charged by so many Longhorn with +1 movement from Speed Banner, which is a huge risk for me. Like we saw, this close combat situation I think depends a lot on the buffs. He had 2 buffs on, I had no buffs, which changed a lot. Micro, like I said, huge mistake. I think it's a game-changing mistake. I should have get my dice to focus dispelling a regen buff after I use Binding Scroll and Stone Skin. That's the 2 key spells that he can't have if I want to go in combat. Yeah, just for the... Also, we fight, after that we did the Tusker combat against the Gortak just to see how it goes. So we rolled dice, he failed Primal Fury but still got hot dice. He had 3 6s to wound me, and on that he did like 5 sick wounds, so he killed 2 Tuskers, and then when I strike back I was able to kill him outright. So I think, yeah, Tusker, even against hot dice, it's a decent, I have decent chance of killing the Gortak if he suffered a couple of wounds before. And yeah, like I said, that's more detail, but I shouldn't have challenged with the Great Khan, but didn't change much in this case. And on my opponent's side, I think he should have dispelled Wrath of God instead of Press on the turn 1. And then, like I said, it was right to move the Longhorn back and not be too close to me turn 1, because the game could have ended up 1 turn sooner as well. So yeah, quite interesting. A couple of lessons learned. It's not too... I'm not too disappointed in the sense that I learned what I wanted first. And I know that in most conditions I wouldn't face... Basically, if I don't face that list on all the ground, then there is a bit more distance between him and me, giving me more time to get rid of stuff, thinking about Gortak, about Chaff, and then make much harder for him to engage. Obviously, this was the hardcore mode because he was able to get ambush plus push me hard, and then I was kind of sandwiched and multiple chaffed with more distance between us. I think it's definitely going to more to my advantage, and I wouldn't feel under so much pressure like it was here. But definitely interesting to face the combat and see how strong these Longhorn were. But you need to keep in mind, I mean, it's 3 post rerollable to hit, and then they were wounding on 2 up and under Savage Fury, so like 24 attack, 22 wounds. Boom, that's it. So that's crazy good. So definitely, if you're going against that big unit, you need to be sure that you're getting rid of almost all the bodies, because if you engage, then you don't know what can happen with magic. I mean, if I get stuck here, then he has Summer Growth, he has a +3 resilience, he has a regen buff, he has distracting, all the stuff that could make it impossible for me to escape. So I think that's key when you're committing against such a unit. You need to be sure of what you're doing. And I think here, yeah, with the regen, the odds were just not good enough to try that. So basically that was it. Thanks a lot, guys, for watching. This was a shorter battle report than it usually is, but it's good sometimes to get a slap in the face, to get a good reminder of sometimes just be more careful and precise about what you do, because this type of small mistake, when you're committing, it's just not allowed. If you make this type of mistake, sorry, it could have a snowball effect, and then basically the game is quickly over. So I knew that I was taking some risk, also due to the position of the Merc Vets and so on. I knew that was the game I was playing. I knew that was the committing, that I should have taken a bit more time in the magic phase. It was also kind of, I think what made my life also harder was the fact that he had so much magic. You used to see Beastard with a master plus the totems, which makes way simpler to choose. In this case, he had so many options. Basically, I had to choose between let the regen off or have the risk for him to get 2 totems plus +1 resilience, for example, which I was afraid of. So in my mind, I made the choice to let as few spells as possible getting cast, which was definitely a huge mistake because there was a priority in stopping the most important spell, which was a good lesson again. Thanks a lot for watching. Talk to you soon on the channel. Bye.